Cairo, 1923. In a luxurious hotel room, Lord Carnarvon, the wealthy English aristocrat who had funded the greatest archaeological discovery of the age, lay dying. His fever was unbearable, his body marked by strange boils, and within days he was gone. At the very same moment, nearly 2,000 miles away in England, his beloved dog suddenly let out a chilling howl before collapsing dead on the floor. Newspapers across the world seized on the story. They called it proof of an ancient curse, the vengeance of a long-dead pharaoh. Headlines screamed of the curse of King Tutankhamun. But behind the headlines lay a story of archaeology, ambition, coincidence, and mystery. A story that continues to captivate the world a century later. To understand the so-called curse, we must begin with the boy king himself. Tutankhamun was born around 1341 BCE, during one of the most turbulent times in ancient Egyptian history. He was the son of Pharaoh Akhenaten, the heretic king who had dared to abandon Egypt's traditional gods in favor of worshipping a single deity, the sun disk Aten. Akhenaten's radical reforms destabilized the kingdom, enraging the powerful priesthood and throwing Egypt into religious and political chaos. Into this fractured world came a child king, Tutankhaten, who would later change his name to Tutankhamun, the living image of Amun, to restore Egypt's traditional gods. He ascended the throne around the age of 9, guided by powerful advisors who steered the kingdom back towards stability. Tutankhamun's reign was brief, lasting less than a decade. His legacy is not of military victories or grand monuments, but of survival. He tried to undo the damage of his father's rule, reopening temples, reviving ancient traditions, and strengthening Egypt's identity. But at around 18 or 19 years old, Tutankhamun died suddenly. The cause remains uncertain. Was it illness, an accident, a genetic condition from centuries of royal inbreeding, or even assassination? His body shows signs of severe injury, a shattered skull, a broken leg, traces of malaria. His death remains one of history's great mysteries. Because of his unexpected passing, Tutankhamun was buried hastily in a small tomb not originally intended for a pharaoh. Yet this very obscurity would ensure his tomb remained hidden, untouched for over 3,000 years. By the late 1800s, Egypt had become the playground of archaeologists and treasure hunters. Tomb after tomb was uncovered in the Valley of the Kings, and most experts believed that nothing remained to be found. But one man disagreed. Howard Carter, a meticulous and stubborn British archaeologist, was convinced that Tutankhamun's tomb still lay hidden. Carter struggled for years with little success, but his determination never wavered. His patron, Lord Carnarvon, funded the work but grew increasingly frustrated by the lack of results. By 1922, after years of disappointment, Carnarvon was ready to abandon the project. Carter pleaded for one final season. That decision would change history. In November 1922, Carter's workers uncovered a hidden staircase deep in the Valley of the Kings. They carefully cleared the rubble until they reached a sealed doorway. Behind it lay the untouched burial chamber of the boy king. When Carter made a small hole and peered inside with a candle, he saw wonders beyond imagination. Golden statues, chariots, shrines, and treasures piled high, untouched since antiquity. Carter's words would become legendary. When asked if he could see anything, he replied simply, "Yes, wonderful things." The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was the greatest archaeological find of the 20th century, perhaps of all time. But with this triumph came whispers of danger. Ancient Egyptians often inscribed warnings on their tombs, invoking the gods to punish anyone who disturbed the dead. Carter himself claimed that Tutankhamun's tomb contained no such warning. Yet soon after the discovery, strange events began to unfold. The first and most famous victim was Lord Carnarvon himself. Just months after entering the tomb, he was bitten on the face by a mosquito. The bite became infected, and within weeks he was dead. His death seemed eerily foretold by a supposed inscription. Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the Pharaoh. Although many historians later argued that this inscription never existed, the press seized on it. The story was too good to resist. At the very moment of Carnarvon's death, all the lights in Cairo were said to have gone out, and back in England, his dog fell dead. Was this coincidence or something darker? The story of the curse only grew as more deaths followed. George J. Gold, a wealthy American who visited the tomb, fell ill almost immediately afterward and died of pneumonia. Prince Ali Kamel Fahmy Bey of Egypt was murdered in London shortly after attending the tomb's opening. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, a radiologist who x-rayed Tutankhamun's mummy, succumbed to a sudden and mysterious illness. Richard Bethel, Carter's personal secretary, was found dead in his bed under suspicious circumstances. His father, Lord Westbury, leapt from a building to his death not long afterward, leaving behind a note that spoke of the pharaoh's curse. In total, more than a dozen deaths were linked to the tomb in sensational newspaper stories. Each one seemed to confirm the curse. The press fanned the flames, crafting headlines that captured the public imagination. Western audiences, already fascinated with Egypt's mystique, devoured every tale. The curse of the pharaoh was no longer a whisper, it was a global phenomenon. But not everyone believed in supernatural vengeance. Many scientists sought rational explanations. Tombs sealed for thousands of years could harbor deadly molds, bacteria, or gases. When disturbed, these could infect or poison intruders. Lord Carnarvon's infected mosquito bite might have been worsened by such exposure. Modern studies have confirmed that some ancient tombs do contain dangerous microorganisms. Could the curse simply be an ancient biological hazard? Others argue that the so-called victims were the result of coincidence, magnified by media hysteria. Howard Carter himself, the man most exposed to the tomb, lived for nearly 2 decades after the discovery. He died peacefully in 1939 at the age of 64. Many other members of the excavation team also lived long lives. The pattern of deaths, when viewed without sensationalism, is less mysterious than it first appears. But perception is powerful, and once the idea of the curse took hold, every death became another piece of evidence. The legend of Tutankhamun's curse also reflected the cultural climate of the time. In the 1920s, Western audiences were fascinated by the so-called mystical East. Exoticism, colonial adventure, and spirituality were popular themes. The discovery of the tomb, followed by unexplained deaths, fed perfectly into this atmosphere. For Egyptians, however, the curse had a different meaning. It became a symbol of resistance, a story that reminded foreign powers that Egypt's heritage was not to be plundered without consequence. As the years passed, the legend grew. Hollywood immortalized it with films like The Mummy in 1932, portraying vengeful pharaohs rising from the grave to punish those who disturbed their rest. Popular culture cemented the connection between ancient Egypt and deadly curses, ensuring that the myth would never fade. Even today, the story resurfaces whenever ancient tombs are opened. And yet, behind the myth lies a simple truth. Tutankhamun's tomb remains one of the most astonishing windows into the ancient world. His treasures reveal the craftsmanship, wealth, and beliefs of Egypt's 18th dynasty. His mummy, studied with modern science, continues to provide clues about life and death more than 3,000 years ago. The curse, whether real or imagined, ensures that the boy king's name lives on.